Hey there and welcome, Summoners. Today I'm going to go over some of my monsters. So, some of you may know, but I'm a level 50 character. I've been in the game for a little over a year and a half, and I've been summoning and leveling the entire time with no breaks. So, I got a message from Oscar on YouTube. Oscar was asking me what monsters do I have in the game and how far am I. So, going over kind of how far I am. In Arena, I typically end in Conqueror, rank 1. Trial of Ascension, I consistently beat it on easy, and I usually break around 50 or 60 on hard. World Boss, I usually end in the first Red Star rank. I think it's another thing like Conqueror. I can get consistently above 2 million on Dark Beast, above 2 million on Fire Beast, about 1.6 on Water Beast, which I really, Ice Beast, I never do it, so that's probably why it's so low. My Wind Beast is the highest, and it's because that's my Homunculus is currently Wind, so he's already up to 2400, and I also consistently get about 17 to 18 on the Light Beast. Now, Rift Raid, I'm on level 5, but I frequently play level 4 because I find more consistent parties. And I'm usually the top contributor in my guild, but it's a fairly low ranking guild. Anyway, obviously I beat all this campaign stuff, and I have auto B10 teams for Giants, auto B10 teams for Dragon, auto B10 team for Necropolis, and for any of the other dungeons. So that's kind of a brief overview of where I'm at in the game. In terms of being a year and a half in Glory Shop, I generally will put all my stats into pillars. So I'm trying to level up all these buildings. You'll see most of them are at level 5 or 7, and a lot of these guys are also maxed out. So I consistently will put my effort into leveling those because overall those boosts last throughout almost the entire game, and they're very beneficial. All right, now to the nitty gritty. What monsters do I have and why? So, I'm going to try and breeze through because I have 63 6 stars and I only have a small bench. My inventory is minor right now. You can see it's just a couple of these guys over here. A lot of these guys are prepped for fusion, or because I maintain all my light and dark monsters that I don't use here, I make sure to keep on hand some of the guys in case I want to level them. So I have a couple Epicon Priests in case I ever want to level the Dark one and I want to level up their skills and whatnot. Anyway, let's get to it. So, first monsters first, Ming Yang. She was my original healer. Back in the day where I was still really new to the game, under level 40, I thought she was really cool. I thought her heal was incredible. Since then, I realized that she's less useful, and I've never really put effort into our runes. I probably haven't used her in over a year, but yeah, I still have her in 6 star. And same thing with Soha. Soha was a way wicked attacker. At the time, she was known to be a really, really heavy attacker. But once again, that got patched a couple of times. After a couple patches, she became less useful. But she was one of my original 5 6 stars, so just like the Water Sky Dancer. Next up is Lure. Lure was my go-to for Arena for the longest time, and then I recently replaced him with Gallon. So I don't use him much anymore. And now Tyrone, forever I used for Arena as well. He's now my main power leveler. And that is specifically because his speed was high and he's got some pretty big AoE attacks. So I used him to clear a lot of the levels and power level monsters prior to the point where I got runes where they can kind of power level themselves. But if I ever have to level up like a 3 star, this will be the guy I do it with. Next up is Gallon, one of my go-to faves. I use him in Arena, and he is one of my favorite monsters in the game. You'll notice that I rank Gallon up mainly on speed, and his stats are specifically ranked or placed so that he'll hit just a few seconds before my dragon does. Next up is Phoenix, my Sigmaris. He was the first 5-star that I ever got as a drop. Unfortunately, it's one that you could fuse. So, what a bummer. I ruined him about a year ago. I never put work into him, and he already delivers pretty heavily, but I really need to change his runes and raise his crit damage. He's ruined terribly right now. So, don't judge that. But next up, Hermos. He used to be my go-to for Tower of Ascension. If you don't already have one leveled up, since he's so common, I highly recommend him for Tower of Ascension. He's great because his dot damage here, his damage over time, is just killer. On top of that, you also have the ability to freeze. So unless you get some rarer guys, he is usually a good go-to that you can get easy for Tower. And right next to him is Talc. Talc I also levered for Tower of Ascension. He can be replaced with Spectra or Basalt, and those are also both great options, but Talc is a really good option for a new guy who's trying to get good at Tower of Ascension. Next we have Julie. Julie was in my bank forever. Almost a year sitting in my bank just waiting to see if I would level her one day. And then I started using her once the Beast came out because I needed more heavy attackers. And then realized shortly after that she is severely underrated, I feel like. She's a very heavy hitter. I love having her. Highly recommend her if you get her. Next is Konomiya. I got Konomiya originally to do the Rift Raid, to try and get up to level 5. Around level 3, I stopped using him, but I think it's more because I got better guys, not so much because he's useless, but, why get rid of a 6-star? After that, we have Orion. I lost my business when I got Orion. I flipped out. He's so freaking useful. And he's great in Arena. He's great in Guild Wars. He's great in Rift Raid at the lower levels. He can just be a really useful guy to have. Downside is, once again, I found other guys to do what he does better. So I rarely use him now. But if you get him, he is for sure one of the best monsters that most players are going to have. Next is Theomars. Theomars was the second Ifrit that I got. The first one we're going to come into in a minute. But Theomars, what a BA. Guy is a total badass. Mine right now, I'm kind of getting creative with his runes. I'm trying to run him with vampire runes because I'm using him a lot in the raid beasts. And he heals himself. And without him healing himself, he's just too squishy. But because he does so much damage to the raid beast, him healing himself does tend to be pretty useful. Next up, we have Chilling. Chilling is way OP. He actually replaced my Orion completely when I got him. Chilling is a staple in my Necropolis team, and that is primarily because of his second move, which is just brutal. And that if you factor in his third move, all his abilities are better when he has more attack speed, and they give him more attack speed the more buffs he has. So he's just very useful to have, especially for Necro. I also use him a lot in guild battles, and I have been known to use him in arena at times for his ability to remove the effects. Next is, actually, I'm going to bounce right back to that. This ability is killer. A 30% chance to increase the target's attack speed, increase the attack speed and crit rate of all allies for 2 turns, and steals beneficial effects from enemy target when landing an attack. So this first attack, you got to remember, he's attacking 3 times. It means he can steal 3 beneficial effects. And every beneficial effect you have increases his attack speed. I know I don't need to justify Chilling, but he's so freaking cool that I do need to point out that he is one of my favorite monsters. Next up, we have Arvis, or Avaris. I'm not really sure how to say his name. Anyway, I got him one night and I flipped out because I had always wanted a Nimbus, and I was told that he was the best at the time. So I quickly leveled him and I threw some runes on him, and I've yet to ever use him. So don't listen to my advice on him because I've never actually played with him. I've just gotten to the point where I can 6-star monsters roughly 1 a week on average. So at that rate of play, I do need to level guys, and I really wanted to get him leveled. So don't judge those runes either. Anyway, next up is Ariel, one of my top 3 favorite monsters. Aerial is useful for me in Rift Raid primarily. I don't really use him everywhere else, but I will also use him as Tower of Ascension. He's a good replacement for Chasun, and he's one of the monsters that I wanted more than anything when I started the game, so I'm happy to finally have him. And right next to it is my second on the list of my top 3 favorite monsters, Brad. Brad's my dragon. He is in my arena team. He is also a beast. I use him in Tower of Ascension a lot as well. Will frequently use him even in the secret dungeons because of his AoE attack and his ability to freeze. But what makes him so overpowered is the fact that he has 2 freezing attacks. So with his speed roughly at 200 exactly, I mean, he's attacking almost every time that a monster is attacking, if not twice with every attack of another monster. So when he's attacking, he's freezing them, and as long as their resistance is low, it just guarantees me easy arena wins. Next up is Alicia, or as I like to call her, Elsa, my Polar Queen. She is super cool. It's supposed to be used for arena and such. I really don't use her for arena much, but what I did do is I replaced Tyrone, the water sylph that I used for power leveling, with her. Because just like him, she also has 2 really big AoE attacks that hit the whole field. I would probably use her more than just that and Secret Dungeon, but she does require a decent amount of Devilmon, and I really have other guys that I want to put the Devilmon into right now. Although her skill for Arena is just incredibly powerful. So I would like to build a fun Arena team around her in the future, but I've only had her for a month or so now. Now, next up is Xiaolin. I got Xiaolin last week. Just 6-starred her. I've seen her used a lot on the 5th tier of Arena. 5th tier of Rift Raid. She is so heavy hitter on that Rift Raid, though. So right now I'm trying to level up her skills and give her some better runes. This was really just to play around with her and get her up to 6-star. But I definitely see using her a lot in the future. If you get her, I would definitely recommend leveling her. I think she's a must-have for a heavy hitter. Next up is Rourke. He was my second 6-star, and I originally got him for grinding early levels early on in the game. I was focusing so much on his move that when he kills a guy, you get an extra turn, and his ability to attack with another monster. A lot of people go after this monster because he's easily obtainable, and people like him. He looks really cool. Inigamis are fun. I don't recommend it so much. He's super useful early game. I'd absolutely level him to level 5. If you're under level 30, you should get one. You should grind it. You should feed monsters to him. You should make him really strong and have him carry you for a while. But once you get up to level 50, he just doesn't have a lot of use endgame. And once you get better guys in every category, he falls by the wayside and you just don't really have much use for him. Next up is Ha. I would still argue that she's probably the best of the Rakashas. She's really strong. Her ability to kick back and decrease the enemy's attack speed and kick their attack bar down is really what makes her useful. And even sometimes her leader skill can come in handy in Rift Raid if you don't already have Theomars. So for a long time, I would use her in Tower of Ascension. I would also use her a lot in Guild Wars and Arena, but now I really only use her in Rift Raid. Outside of Rift Raid, I might use her in the occasional Arena, depending on the team I'm going against. Next up is JoJo. I originally got JoJo because I really needed a heavy hitter. This was back when I still had about 3 or 4 6-stars. So JoJo doesn't really have a lot of use endgame either, but I'm really hoping to make a cool team with him and Sierra at some point because of his bomb effect. Although I do really feel obligated to level up his skills, especially because I can make more JoJos and sacrifice them to him just to level up his sub-skills. Next up is Verdeli, or Verdile, or whatever kind of pronunciation you give on him. The Fire Vampire, super useful monster. Mainly because his arena or his leader skill is raising everyone's speed by 28% in dungeons. This also works on raid beasts, so you will see him used more frequently. Although mine is not set up for some real heavy damage, he also speeds up everybody's attack bar a little bit every time he attacks, so he can be useful. Next up is Chloe. Now, if you've seen any of my other videos, you know that my arena team is a speed team. Chloe can be useful in a speed team if it's defensive, but mine is built around complete offense. So having an offensive team for speed, I don't really use her much. I've gotten to the point where I may use her on the occasional Tower of Ascension level, but that's about it. I never use her now. But prior to having about 26 stars, I would say that I used her nearly everywhere in the game. I used her in Arena, I used her in Guild Wars, I used her in Tower of Ascension, I used her in Secret Dungeons, I used her in B10s. I used her all over the place, but I honestly never use Chloe anymore, and that's more of a personal choice than a necessity. If you get her, she's a staple monster for sure. Next up is Juno. She was one of my third or fourth natural 5-star, so I did hold on to her. I intended to use her in an arena team, and I do have one arena team where I use her to remove beneficial effects, because her first attack is removing all beneficial effects from enemies. So I do use that to debuff sometimes, but other than that, I don't really have a good use for her, which is why her runes are still subpar. All I really have her at is high speed. Next is Beretta. Beretta, staple. Guys, you can build Beretta anytime you want, and she's super useful. The important thing is to get her accuracy as high as you can. Mine's at 95% right now, which is a little low, but I do have some rune leveling to do on her, and once that's done, she'll be at level 50, or at 50% accuracy. I do need to get around these runes, but I've already done a lot of my Tower of Ascension this month, so I'll probably end up waiting until it resets. Know that Beretta is a Tower of Ascension staple. I keep her as a lead. Her ability to deliver dots is also useful for B10 dragons. If you kill the Spire first, that gives him immunity. Her dots are a great way to kill that dragon and deliver some heavy damage. Other than that, I see her used a lot in arenas. I don't really recommend her for it. She can do it well, but she's just not enough of a speed hitter or heavy hitter, so as you move up, she'll get less and less useful. Next up is Tessarion. Tessarion was my first Ifrit. I actually got him before I got the Dark Ifrit. Super cool monster, especially to take out the Dark Ifrit in arenas, because he's got the ability to confuse your opponent's monster and remove their passive abilities. So that and his ability to have 41% added to resistance does make him a useful monster. I used to use him as a front row defense monster for Rift Raid, but recently I've found that I don't have any real use for him in the moment. I'm hoping to bring him back around in the future, though, because he is a really strong monster. Next up, Colleen. I leveled up Colleen specifically for Rift Raid. I had no purpose for her before, but now that I leveled her for that, she has become very useful. She's on my staple for Necropolis team, meaning that I use her every time on my B10 Necropolis. Guys, get a Colleen, level her up. You'll find her to be surprisingly useful. Next up is Smokey. Smokey came out in Hall of Heroes, but he was the first of all the Jack-O-Lanterns that I got. So at the time, I was trying to build a Necropolis team. I bumped him straight up as quick as I could to 6-star for Necropolis, and then I ended up replacing him with a monster you're going to see in a minute, which is actually another Jack-O-Lantern guy. So I did not upgrade the runes on him. They're not super good, but they were really just there originally for Necropolis. Next up, one of my favorite and my current rep monster, so I can level up my sub account, my Monkey King. He is super way OP. I give him vampire runes, and he generally keeps himself alive. My arena's defense is, Guild War defense is usually just him and Shasun. between the two of them, they pretty much stay alive forever. He's got a decent amount of defense and HP, not a ton, but a decent amount, and a decent amount of attack speed. So as you knock him down, his attack power gets 20% stronger every time he takes a hit. So most people take him out because they think that he's the guy who's going to be easier to kill between him and Chasun, and they slowly pump up his attack, and then he basically kills off any attacking people before they can take out Chasun. Whew! Sorry guys, this is a lot of monsters. Next up, we have Haui. Haui staple for Necropolis. I do use her every time in Necropolis. She is super useful, both in the fact that she's got an attack that hits consistently 5 to 7 times, and then she also... Oh, wait, you know what? That's 3 is 1 5 certain, sorry. Anyway, it hits a bunch of times. That lowers the attack bar of Necropolis, and she deals heavy damage. And her heal effect is based on how high her attack power is. So this is an attacking creature who also heals and also buffs everyone's attack skill. So aside from that, guys, I don't find her to be as useful anywhere else as the other Sky Dancers. But for Necropolis alone, she's very useful. Next up is Xiao Fei. Xiao Fei is a staple for me. Once again, he's my Necropolis leader. I also use him in Rift Raid as a front row defense monster. You can see I just buffed up his defense and resistance a ton. He's really built on extra turns, which is a no-no for Rift Raid, but I do really like having it for Necropolis, and I rely more on him in Necropolis. So I do use him as a damage healer in Rift Raid, and that's not really advised. Next is Kumar. I'm almost done leveling Kumar, but he was one of my 4th or 6th, somewhere in there, 6 stars. I was super happy to get him. I used him for arena. I used him for guild battles. I was all over him for the first month or 2, and then I just got other priorities. So he's kind of gone off by the wayside again, but I really should wrap back around him to appreciate him more. Now we're up to my newest natural 5-star and one of my favorites, Vanessa. Vanessa I got recently after getting Sierra. So I really didn't need her leader skill for arena, but that's what she's primarily used for, is arena. And I'm not going to use her in defense for arena based on my arena team standing right now. So I am currently using her for one of my attack teams for arena. It's great against a large tank team or someone that might kill Tosai, which is my lead for my whole arena. Next up, we have Michelle. Michelle was my first healer in the game. At the time, I couldn't understand why people didn't want a healer that would revive and heal for a large amount of HP. And then as I got higher in the game, I realized why nobody likes that, because there are better healers in the game. So she's gone off by the wayside completely, and I don't use her. But before, I used her in every category of the game as my original healer. I wouldn't really recommend leveling Michelle, but I am happy that I still have her. Next up is Smete. I don't really use him anymore, but prior to having a better candidate, I used him for his attack speed boost in Arena, and he does hit really heavily. So he can be a useful monster if you don't have any of these natural 5-stars. But other than that, generally he's considered food, I believe. You can use him for giants. I don't really recommend him for giants. I don't find him to be useful for it. There are better monsters. Next up is Katrina. The first fusion I ever did. I always wanted a Valkyrie. I just wanted Camille or Vanessa. So I did make Katrina. I've never really used her. I've never upgraded her runes. Her runes are pretty much the same runes I put on her a straight year ago. I did mess around with her a little bit in the new raid beasts, mostly on the water raid beast, but I found better teams in the long run. I like having her though because she's super cute. Next up is Bernard. He's one of my most frequently used monsters. There isn't one aspect of the game I don't use him in. I use him in Arena. I use him in Guild Wars. I use him in B10 teams. I use him in Tower of Ascension. I have used him in Rift Raid. I use him on Raid Beasts. If you do not have Bernard, you need to get your efforts into farming that desert and getting one leveled up. Your goal with him is to give him high defense and just unbelievable speed. So mine's up at 263 right now, and my goal is to get him up to 300 eventually. So bear in mind that that is the ceiling, pretty much. You can get a little higher than 300, but that's your goal. Get Bernard as fast as you can because he speeds up everybody else on your team. If you currently don't see the value in him, it's because you haven't played with him. Once you play with him and he's leveled up, he's just a broken monster. He's way more powerful than he should be. Next up is the third of the natural 5 stars that I have ever gotten, Leo. And I've actually gotten 2 Leos, which is kind of a real cop-out because you really have no use for 2 of them. Leo's claim to fame is the ability that he has to make everyone slow down to his speed. So some people play this as an arena skill to make sure that they go up against speed teams and the speed teams aren't fast. It's not particularly useful if they're running Bernard, because Bernard or anybody else who speeds up the rest of the team, if they're really fast, Leo will always go first, but then the fastest guy gets to go second. They're still in order of who's fastest. So yeah, they won't be lapping you in turns and constantly coming back around to hit you, but at the same time, Leo is not a failsafe to everything, and that's why I don't think you see him as frequently played in the late game. That, and the fact that he is relatively rare. Lucian, my first Lucian. Took me over a year to get Lucian. My goal is to get a full team of 4 at some point. My runes are not done on him. I'm always kind of working on him and his skills. I don't think he's high enough priority to put Devilmon into. I do think he would be if I didn't have as many monsters as I did, but I always see it putting in natural 5 stars because I can fuse Jojo anytime and use him to Devilmon up my Lucian. So that's Lucian number 1. I will use him in both. Let's see. I use him in Guild Wars. I do use him in Arena. I use him in Tower every once in a while for a one-shot level where I need to deal heavy damage. But I use him most consistently for secret dungeons. He's super useful for secret dungeons and clearing out a whole floor. Next up is Copper. I originally leveled Copper for Rift Raid. I've never really found him to be super useful. You do kind of have to build a team around Copper and make it really set up well. But I made him, and I'm happy that I have him, but honestly, never really used him much. Next up is Yen. Yen is the Wind Rakasha, and I don't think people give her credit. She is way fast. She constantly will just hit and get extra turns and hit and get extra turns. So I use her mainly in Guild Wars. But I have used her to grind levels, and I've also used her to grind the Dimension hole, the Dimension Crystal hole thing where you use to power level monsters. I've used her in there quite a bit on Water Days. Chasun, my pride and joy. Took me almost a year to get Chasun. I think I was getting real close, like my 364th day kind of thing. But Chasun, total badass healer. You all know she's maybe the best healer in the game at 4-star level. And my goal for her is to get her as fast as possible while still breaking 30,000 HP and 11,000, but I'm actually at 12, but the goal was 11,000 defense. I use her in every aspect of the game except for Arena. There's nowhere else that I don't use her frequently. I use her on B10 teams, use her for Guild Wars, Arena, no, sorry, not Arena, but Tower, all over the place. Next up, Mav. Mav is another underappreciated monster. I'm sure you've gotten him a couple of times. Mav is great for Rift Raid. He's a great cleanser for your team. The only downside to Mav is there are better monsters out there. But if you are free to play and you don't have a large quantity of monsters in your pool, level yourself up with Mav as a cleanser for Rift Raid. Next up is Delphoni. Delphoni I made once again. I got her for Rift Raid. I intended to use her consistently in Rift Raid as a cleanser. And I do sometimes, but I also do have other guys I use. and because of that, I don't really use her anywhere else. I do think her primary focus is on Rift Raid, and unfortunately, I just don't have a use for her there anymore. Lucian number 2, this one was built a little bit more around being a little faster. I really need to upgrade his runes. I really only use this Lucian in clearing secret dungeons at high speeds. Next up, Kahlua, my homunculus. I leveled him up for wind, mainly because wind was the easiest floor for me to get a high score in. So the higher the score, the more reward I got, which means I can level him up faster. I'm currently in the process of finishing him. I'm maybe a week or two away from his skill tree being completed. At that point, I will probably reset him and go into water, which seems to be the strongest right now, or potentially fire. The ability to change you can do anytime after you've leveled all of them up, so it's a useful thing to know before you get into it, but know that this is like a 2-month long project for you. It could take you significantly longer, but Kahlua is a lot of work, but he's very useful peripheral use. Next up is Brand. Brand, oh my gosh, I've wanted him forever. I got him about a month ago. It took me over the 1.5 year mark to get him. One of the best monsters in the game as far as tanks. He's super useful for Trial of Ascension. He's also crazy useful in Rift Raid. I have him on the back row of my Rift Raid team, but if his defense was higher, I would have him in the front row. His ability to revive is second to none. I think he's, as far as 4-stars go, maybe the most practical reviver in the game. Next up is Sierra. Sierra was one of my more recent 5-stars. I've been kind of on a spree where I'm getting one every other month right now, and I'm not really sure what it's about, but Wi-Fi is a good thing, right? Sierra is used in half of my arena teams, and her ability to blow up bombs makes me think that it'd be really fun to make a all-bomb team with her one day, or even try just some like crazy weird levels where you can blow up bombs. Although I do really need to put work into leveling up her sub-skills, because currently she has no Devilmon on her, which makes her pretty weak. The downside is she maxes out at like 11, so that's a lot of Devilmon that I have to give. That's nearly 3 months worth of Devilmon. So it might take me a while to get her leveled up until I get a little more serious about my competitive arena. This guy, Lynn. She was my first 6-star. Lynn is great because she's really powerful. The problem is, once you get past level 30, there's not a lot of use for a one-shot super powerful monster. She does have useful skills, and she's been boasted to be good at many aspects of the game. But the only place I use her currently is on the Light Beast for Raid. The Light Raid Beast, I just find her to be a really heavy hitter. I really should increase her runes and make her better. But currently I put her on that team because she does deal out more damage than most of the other monsters, and she's a good heavy one-shot hitter to break through that shield. Next up is Bloden. Bella is maybe one of the most useful monsters in the game. Alongside Bernard, he's a monster that everyone can get, and everyone knows to get him. On my sub account, this is easily going to be one of my first 6-stars. I highly recommend you get one. I highly recommend you make it one of your first levels ups. And Oscar, specifically, if you're still watching this deep into the video, this should be your first 6-star, I believe. He's useful in nearly every aspect of the game. He can be useful in arena, tower, B10 levels. He's useful in secret dungeons. He's useful in Rift Raid. He's useful in up to like level 4 for Rift Raid. I think I do still have him on my level 5 team, though. At least sometimes. Guys, Bellowden, total badass monster. Get it. Get it. Get it. Next up, Toeside, Pride and Joy, the last of my main 3 favorites. It's my Archangel, my Dragon, and my Samurai. Why? Because he's the rarest light and dark monster I have, and he's a crazy heavy hitter. He hits so hard. I use him mainly for arena, but I also do use him on the raid beasts, and I have been known to use him in secret dungeons to grind. He just hits like crazy. When I need a monster that can deal a lot of damage quickly, I'll usually pull out Tosai. Next up, we have Darien. Darien, everyone boasts how good he is. I'm not down with Darien. I don't really see the value in him so much. Yes, he can be useful to keep your guys alive. I think it's more of, a low level thing. And I never got Darien until I was level 50. I was trying to use him for Rift Raid, and he just got replaced by other guys. So, cool guy, useful skills. I like his shield break. I like his ability to lower everyone's damage taken, but just ultimately not so useful for me. Next up is Amen. Amen is really based for me on Trial of Ascension, using him on that TOA. He does some really decent crowd control in the sense that he can provoke enemies, and at the same time, he can be acquired easily early on in the game, and he can heal the entire group. So he should never be a main healer, but like the Panda, he can be a useful sub-healer. Next up is Kabila. Kabila is going to replace at some point my Bernard for my arena team, mainly because her base speed is 120. So when I post the runes on her, she'll be 10 points higher than Bernard in speed. She's not good for elongated battles, though. She's really good for a one-shot attack. Bernard has the ability to raise everyone's speed instantly. He raises the attack bar, but he also raises everyone's speed by 30%. She doesn't have that ability. She just raises the attack bar. So she's great to get an attack off first, but in an extended battle, the only other real good ability she has is the ability to break your opponent's shield. So if you get her, keep her, make sure you use her. I use her in nearly every guild battle I do, but know that she does have a weakness, which is not being as good as Bernard. Arya is next. Loved when they gave her that Hall of Heroes for her. You want to give this girl 100% accuracy. I mainly use her on Trial of Ascension, but she's also great for Guild Wars, mainly because she has the ability to stun and weaken your opponents. But her leader skill can be really useful if you're going to use her in Arena. That would be more if you get her early in the game, though. Next is Driller. I got Driller because one of my guildmates loves it, and she thinks he's like the best monster in the game. So I agree that he does way more damage than I anticipated, but I do need to give him better runes. He can be really useful on the raid beasts, and I have seen people use him successfully in arenas and guild wars. So he's worth checking out if you get him. And let's face it, he is probably the coolest of all the Frankensteins that can be useful. The dark one's way cool too, but he's just not useful at all, where at least the light one is. Next up, Isir, the light werewolf. I've gotten the dark werewolf a number of times, and I always end up getting rid of him, but the light werewolf is just too useful to get rid of. There are multiple aspects of the game where he's useful. Some people use him in literally every category. I will primarily use him in Tower of Ascension on one-shot levels, Guild Wars at a larger consistency, and even sometimes in Arena. It's possible. I don't use him nearly as much as I could, but on my sub account I have him right now, and he's such a beast. So if you don't have anybody to speed up your team, he can be a useful monster for you. Next is Vermos. If you don't know what Vermos is, you don't play Summoner's War enough, because this is the most practical and the main monster that everyone should fuse. Super useful monster. His ability to remove harmful effects every turn makes him way powerful, and he can hit really hard. So I used to have him on my Arena team. I used to have him on my Rift Raid team. I've recently pulled him out of all that. I really only use him in Tower right now and on my B10 Dragons team as a debuffer. But I really need to address his runes and give him some more Devilmon. Once I put some work into him, I will use him more frequently. I don't use him as much as I should, in other words. This month I've been working on getting all my dark monsters up to 6-star, so these are the guys that I've been doing this month, and that's somewhat because of Halloween theme. Dusky is a staple if you get him for my Necropolis team. He hits way hard. I also use him in Trial of Ascension at times and I use him consistently for raid beasts because, much like chilling, he has the ability to speed up all your monsters and also raise their crit rate. But he also gives himself his own protective shield at the end of every turn that he doesn't attack. So that really helps him stay alive. And then when he does hit really hard and he lowers everyone's speed. He also has the ability to increase monsters' resistance by 40% in dungeons. So he's a very useful monster if you're lucky enough to get him. Then I have Ran. Ran had a Hall of Heroes a month or two ago. I actually just 6-starred and leveled her up today. So her runes are not good. I don't really know what I'm going to use her for yet, but I do think that she's going to be useful in multiple aspects of the game. I'm going to try to play around with a couple of these different sets of runes I don't use a lot, like Destroyer and even these fight runes. Next up is Karakum. Karakum is the Dark Mummy. I made him last week. I found him to be actually useful in some of the Rift Raid teams, or for the Rift Beasts, but I don't know quite what I'm going to use him yet for. I think I'm going to end up using him for Guild War defense. Right now I have him with Vampire Runes, because a lot of his skills lend very well to dealing damage. If you don't know much about him, he's worth checking out later, but he's fun too if you want to make an all-dark team because he increases everyone's resistance. Alright, 2 more guys. Next up, Basalt. Staple monster. If you get him, he's a Tower of Ascension staple. He has the ability to provoke monsters with a 50% chance that can go up to 80 once you level his sub-skills. I can't tell you how useful that is on certain monsters as you level up in Trial of Ascension. Next up, he has the ability to recover the whole team's HP a bit. And then lastly, he inflicts damage to all enemies proportionate to his defense and decreases their attack bar. So useful. Slowing down those monsters is what you need in Tower of Ascension. Or Trial. I keep going back and forth, but you know what I mean. I really should get his resistance up, and it would be fun to try to get his crit damage up. Maybe even the crit rate a little bit more, just for that passive damage, so he could be useful. But also, I would rather get his speed up a little higher, or even potentially more defense and HP. His runes right now are kind of weak because I only got him last month, but I will be putting more work into him, getting him some new runes, maybe next month. And last but not least, Thran. Thran completely replaces the blue Grim Reaper when you use him for Rift Raid or for Trial. And that is primarily because he has nearly the same skills, but he does significantly more damage. And his base attack is the ability that the red one has, which means that if you kill a monster, you get to attack again. So super useful monster if you get this guy. I haven't found many uses for him outside of the Trial of Ascension, but his ability for dots could also be used very well in Dragon's B10. Last up are some of the monsters that I have on bench. We're going to switch the view for that. Scroll down here. My bench monsters, I do want to use Malaka at some point for that Sierra team I was talking about. I wanted to make an all-samurai team if I ever get the dark one, so I'm holding on to June, who's one of the better ones. I was trying to play around last month with Gilliandun, because he's just a really heavy hitter, and I had 2 or 3 of them saved up. I got Skimmat like a month ago, and she's super useful. Unfortunately, I already have Juno leveled at 6 stars, so she's been a low priority. She's on list to be the, not my next one, but the one after for my 6 stars. I always keep a second Gallon on hand because he's so useful for Guild Wars because of his leader ability of raising the speed. So if I ever lose my first one, I like to have a second one on hand just for my speed teams. And then my next 6-star is scheduled to be Harungar, mainly because I think he's just super cool. Look how cool he looks, this dark barbaric king. But I think I'm going to use him in Guild War defense. I just feel like he's going to be useful at some point, but realistically, I can't get over how cool he is. And then I have my lovely ladies here. I have Gina and Linda, and I will probably 6-star them at some point just because I think their characters are super cute. I'm gonna try to rune them in a way that makes them seem useful, but the reality is they have no real practical purpose for me in the game. I've just had them forever, and I think they're really cool as the transmog, and I've been able to level up all their sub skills. So it's like, well, why not? Why not try and find a use for them? They can't be that bad. Anyway, that's a little bit about my monsters and where I've gone in the game. I will be posting more videos. If you have questions in the game, feel free to hit me up. You can also hit me on Twitter at cartoon_lord. But let me know what you guys want to see in these videos, especially new guys. Questions you have, hit me up. I'd love to answer your questions and teach you some of the basics of the game. If you need more detail on any of the monsters I had, let me know. And if you disagree with any of the comments that I made about these monsters or why they're good, or I said a monster is bad that you think is amazing, let me know. I'd like to hear about it. There's always things that you pick up on the game that are new, and I'm not saying that I'm the best here, but this is just an experienced player at level 50 who's kind of got through most of the game at this point. Thanks for watching, guys. Don't forget to comment or favorite, and I'll see you next time.